Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of the 49er Industry Chat Series. We got a great chat for you today and a super enthusiastic alum, David. I'm so happy to have you here discussing what I wish I knew when I was in school and early in my career. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And no, I'm not at the beach, but I was at this beach at one time.
Awesome. Well, let me just read your bio so that way folks can kind of, hear what you're about, and we'll get into it.
Wonderful.
So, with an impressive 35-year tenure at State Farm, David has navigated a diverse career path that has shaped his experiences in the insurance industry. Starting as an auto claim representative in Los Alamitos and Cerritos, he's honed his skills before transitioning to the role of fire claim representative and then transitioned to the personnel department, human resources in Costa Mesa. His journey continued with the pivotal role of public affairs specialist in the establishment of the Bakersfield facility, showcasing his commitment to organizational growth. Eager for new challenges, he ventured into entrepreneurship by opening State Farm agencies in both Carson and Tustin. David then served as an agency field consultant in Cerritos, a role that later evolved into agency field executive in Culver City and Paramount. His dedication to excellence culminated in his appointment to as agency field leader for the Long Beach sales territory, solidifying his commitment to driving success and fostering a culture of achievement within the State Farm community. David, that's impressive. That is an
Wow.
impressively long career.
Thank you so much, man. I tell you, it's gone by very quickly. Very exciting times. Very exciting
Wow,
times.
that's great. Well, hey, let's start off with, a little bit of background about yourself. Can you tell me about what your life and experiences were like and what led you to come to CSULB in the first place?
An interesting story is that I married to my high school sweetheart, and we were both going to attend Cal State Long Beach, but unfortunately, she had some our family medical issues were going on at the time, so she couldn't make it. And I thought I wasn't going to go to college; I was going to start at the junior college. Never forget is you think about mentorship. I had a mentor that I had known since the fourth grade, and I told him that I was just going to go to the junior college so I could stay closer. And I'll never forget. He says, "Oh no, you're going to college." And I remember looking at him saying, okay. And so I in my mind, going to Long Beach, I actually um, born in actual Long Beach, and actually Long Beach has been a big part of my life. And so I thought, what a great place to attend. Now, the thing is when you come from the city of Santa Ana and you're the first one ever to go to college, you got some shock that kind of hits you because you get to 30,000 people and everybody are going everywhere. It can be a stressful time. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm going to make this. And the beauty of being able to look back now is think that there were always friends that I had along the way that just kind of kept encouraging you. And I had the pleasure of working for the intramural department there at Cal State Long Beach. And by far, I couldn't have had a better experience because I got to meet people from the sororities and fraternities, local students, as well as having kind of a responsibility. So it allowed me to kind of be sticky, I guess you could say, to make sure that I was going to be at the university and that I was going to graduate, because I know there's a lot of times, especially unfortunately with the Latino community, that we don't stay in. Our rates of graduation diminish after the second year. And I thought, I'm not going to be a statistic. And so I wanted to stick it out. So
No, that's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad that you did because we love having you as an alum. But you kind of touched on it a little bit. But could you just expand? Like, what was your student experience like? What
I
was?
thought,
Did you have any
yeah.
peers that stuck with you? Any professors? Were you part of any other
No,
student
you know,
organizations?
I think the biggest piece for me was unfortunately, Mr. Hardy, Professor Hardy passed away. But he was my political science. He was kind of like my mentor, and became my advisor from freshman year. And I almost hate to admit this, but one of the things that solidified our relationship was, I think I was overwhelmed and when I first arrived on campus, and I'll never forget, we had a paper that was due that was requiring 30 periodicals, 10 books, and there was quite a large project. And I'll never forget when I walked in, and I had just started the process, and I was working, I was trying to figure myself out, and I walk in class, and he says, the paper is due today. And I obviously was not prepared. And I just remember walking up to him, I was devastated. I didn't know what to say or do. And I remember walking up to him and saying, I think I need to drop your class because I did not complete the project. And he said, no, I'm not gonna let you drop my class. I'm gonna give you an extension, and here's what you're gonna do. And frankly, it was probably one of the most intense several weeks of doing everything. I ended up getting, I think it was a B plus on on the project. Probably didn't give me the A because I was late, which I deserved. But from that point on, he kind of watched out for me, and that to me was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me, from what was kind of like being, as we were talking about earlier, being in the valley to reaching the peak, because here was someone that watched out for me. And so that now it was more of, it was a wake-up call. So I was a commuter, so I didn't stay on campus, and so I was trying to work as well to help pay for college. And I thought, I'm going to be it made me become more organized, and that's one of the big pieces. But being on campus, I used to drive my parents' van. What they couldn't really help me financially, but they gave me a place to live, and they gave me their vehicle to use. And I remember I'd be between classes, because you were in classes all day. I'd go to the van, I'd do my studying in there, I'd go back out. And so it was one of those things that it was a great experience. And it got to the point where I used to ride my skateboard through the campus. And I'm not sure if the hill is still there, but on the outside of the political science building, they had a hill that I used to ride my skateboard down that hill. And I would be coming down pretty fast. As I think back now, I'm thinking that was probably the dumbest thing I could have done. No helmet, no knee pads, no nothing. But I'm riding and as I mentioned earlier, is that I used to carry my briefcase, because I was one of those guys that I always wanted to carry a briefcase. So I would have my briefcase on my skateboard. So I was cool and business at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think that's when you were telling me about your briefcase, I definitely didn't imagine you on a skateboard carrying a briefcase. Yes. So
that's a nice wannabe leather suitcase, a briefcase. But when I walked around, I felt as if I belonged. And one of the neatest things, you talk about the experience, and you always remember little things that took place. And I'll never forget one of the first days that we were on campus, that one of the administrators made a comment to us saying, and I share this with all the students I have the pleasure of speaking with, especially at the Hispanic Student Business Association, is I always say to them, you are a professional student. And with that came, you are a professional. And it was almost like putting in someone's mind, letting them know, hey, this is who you are. And so it was almost like you're branded, and it elevated you to another level, so that now when you were studying, you knew you were going towards a goal, which was, I am a professional, and I will be wearing that suit. My new uniform will be a suit, or it'll be a sports coat, because that's what I'm going to be able to do. And frankly, it's just, there's people that come along in this journey that you just think, thank you for placing that individual in my life, because they helped me get there. So many of them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, your degree was in political science, and when you graduated, right? Did you think you would be going into insurance when you were a student? Did you think that that's where you were going to end up, or was that just something that? What was your journey like?
So if anybody who's heard me speak before, I always tell them that my goal was to be the youngest mayor for the city of Santa Ana. That was my goal. And so I thought what I was going to do is I was going to go to law school. So actually I was a law clerk from my sophomore year all the way through my senior year, until I made my journey with State Farm. And the goal was my attorney, Mr. John Loggins, said to me, I'll pay for your law school for you. Took the LSAT, did the whole thing. But at one point, I remember talking to him about his journey, which was he was working in the insurance industry. And I thought about it. I thought, well, maybe I could do that. And then maybe I'll do that for a couple of years, and then I'll finish up, and then I'll go become a lawyer and then go into my political career. Well, 35 years or 34 years later, I'm still here, right? But I think what happened is I realized for me, in the roles that I was going to play, I was always about wanting to help others. And what the opportunities that I had as a claim representative, as a public affairs specialist, and frankly, even an agency, is I was able to satisfy that role. And so as I think about, now looking at 35 years, to me, it's one of those things that I have been able to satisfy all the things that I wanted to do, which was I get to mentor students there at Cal State Long Beach, which gives me a chance to go and give back there. I've been able to help folks in the community that I work in by giving them opportunities to even become State Farm agents. And I have got many of my State Farm agents that are Cal State Long Beach graduates. And so it gives me an opportunity to say to them, hey, look, I'm going to give you an opportunity that you've never imagined, which is to be able to run your own business. And so for me, if you had asked me would I have ever ran my own business, I would have said no, never. But yet, as you can't see behind the water, but I have the 4 banners for my children's universities. And in my mind is that the opportunity for work for State Farm has allowed me to put my kids through college and given them the opportunity to succeed, which is all I've been looking for. So yeah, long answer to a short question.
No, and a great answer. I mean, I think that, a lot of people might not think about insurance, right? Because there's no degree. Like, we don't, at least here, we don't offer a degree in insurance, sales, management, claims, any of those specialties. But I think that, what people don't think of is or might not think of, or maybe even be wondering is, what kind of transferable skills
Yeah,
do you use
yeah.
on the day to day with
Yeah.
that you learned at the beach that you use today still in your career?
You think about even looking back to even the work experience on campus, is that the entrepreneurial program, and I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but it was an opportunity for us to do a couple of things. Number one, obviously, to make sure that that people were staying active, because a lot of times you're so busy with your schoolwork, we want you to stay active. So number one, that allowed me that opportunity. Number two, what allowed me to be able to connect with people and be able to talk to them. And then at the same time, as far as your organizational skills, with all your classes, and frankly, our psychology classes, our even our political science classes that we had, is that all they were doing was, it was just what I called is it allowed me to be trainable, is really what it was. And so as you think about the skill set of being able to talk to others, well, if you didn't want to talk to others, then you're going to have a heck of a hard time in any business, because in a position of leadership, in a position of business, you're going to need to present what you're offering to, whether it's your boss or to clients. And so you want to have that comfort level. I think our communications classes were probably key for me. And as you can probably tell, I'm probably more of an extrovert than I am an introvert. But at one point, I'll never forget, is that I got so scared about public speaking that I think if you see a picture of me on my daughter's baptism, you'll see my face about caved in, because I was so stressed out that it was really kind of eating me alive, basically. And luckily, some of the things that I learned at Cal State Long Beach from my communication classes, but then the one little piece, I got to tell you, this is like the secret, is what I'd say, is that I found somebody who I felt was the best presenter I'd ever seen. And at this moment, I was going through this, I don't know, just being so stressed out that I didn't think that at that moment, now I'm in this job, that I belonged. And I said to her, can I ask you a question, please? She says, yes. He says, I think you're one of the best presenters, but you don't get nervous. How do you get over the nervousness? And she says, wait, let me stop you there, David. And he says, I get nervous every single time. I go, there's no way. There is no way. You are the best speaker I've ever seen. There's no way you get you. And she says, watch me tomorrow morning when I present. And she says, when you see me, look at from my chest up to my throat and watch what happens. It's going to turn beet red. So of course, the meeting's probably at 8 o'clock. I think I was there at 6:30. I was there as soon as I could. I wanted that front seat. I was going to be right in the front. And I'm sitting in the front seat, and all of a sudden the presentation starts, and her first of the good morning. And as soon as she says good morning, I see her whole chest turn a beet red and her neck beet red. And it was almost like that was the moment, like the epiphany of saying, oh my God, if what I consider to be the best person gets nervous, I don't need to do that. And it literally changed my career, because from that moment forward, it was now, oh, you're giving me the microphone. Oh, you want it back? No, I got it. I'm okay. And so the idea is, because you have so much control of a whole room, you've got a message that you're sharing with people that they need to hear, because you have the information. And so being able to really kind of help others with what you do, it's a powerful gift. I gotta say, it's a powerful gift. And for me, Sean Smith is her name, and every time I get a chance to brag about her, it's like it just changed everything I did. So if you think about, I would recommend, you've got to do a communications course. You have to get comfortable with it. We do it early. We've started our kids when they were little. You think about just little things about when they have birthday parties. We make it a point that I put them on a chair that they don't fall around, and I tell them to acknowledge the entire group that's there. You think about that's by accident. It's not. The idea is, I'm going to make you comfortable in speaking in front of a group, and that happened since they were 3 years old all the way up. And I'd always make sure they do that. So it's just preparation. And so that's probably one of the things that it's not just a schooling, but it's like some things that you bring to the table. You've got the skill set. My job is to help you kind of bring it out, is what it's going to be. And Cal State Long Beach kind of cultivated it for me. And then now I'm able to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think that actually transitions so nicely into my next question, which is about mentorship and networking.
Yeah.
How important is mentorship and networking in your line of work, and what's your experience been like? Are you a mentor? Do you have mentors, and what does that look like for you?
I think if you get anything from this conversation, that is probably one of the biggest keys that you're going to have. I've actually, well, my first mentor is my father, who I consider him to be a Renaissance man, carpenter for 45 years, but the guy knew everything. And so my mentor, who was a high school, he was my junior high school counselor, that basically I kept in contact with him throughout the time. And so decisions that I made of not going into politics were things that he helped me make a decision not to, which was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And I still to this day call on him. I ask about it. But one of the things that I always tell everybody, that once you graduate and you're going into the workforce, well, two things I would tell you. Number one is make sure you start your 401k, 457, or whatever it is for your retirement. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put some money away. So if you didn't hear anybody else, you're going to hear from me. Do that. Okay. So make sure. But the other thing is to find out about, you look around and find out who would you like to be, who would you like to emulate? Who would you like to get to know? And so my biggest thing is that at the same time, I was always a small kid. And so I wouldn't get beat up when I was a small kid. I always made sure I made friends with the biggest kid in the block, right? Because guess what? When I was biggest friends with the guy in the block, nobody ever messed with me, right? And so you figure that since in business, if there's people that you see that they're doing things that you would like to do, is invite them for a cup of coffee, take them out to go and get a sandwich, and then you got to look at, you got to feel comfortable with that individual, because you're going to share things with you. Because the one term that I heard a couple of years back when I was speaking at Cal State Long Beach, and I hadn't heard about it before, was imposter syndrome. And I honestly I didn't really use that term. I know people have said fake it till you make it type of things, but that term, and it really kind of hit me because I always told everybody in these meetings is that I want you to know no matter where you sit or where you stand, you belong. And I think what happens is when you have a mentor that you can tap into is key. So I've had mentors when I first started, and if I could I'll make it a quick story. I had an opportunity to speak to. I actually received a phone call from our personnel department, and they called me about maybe considering a possibility in personnel. And so I asked them about it, and I said, hold on, let me go ask my leadership. And the person said, you know what, you don't want to do that, don't do it. Okay, I'm 24 years old. I'm going to follow what I think is one of my leaders. I go to a friend of mine who's a supervisor in another department, and I go, hey, I just got this weird call that just came through. And he says, and what'd you say? I go, I told him no. Maciel, you just got the call. I got the call? What call did I get? You got the call. He goes, they are not asking you unless they really want you. Really? So I immediately call him right back. I call him up. I said, I'd like to interview with you. And then sure enough, when I go to interview him, I end up finding out I really wanted that job. And I will tell you one of the other things that was kind of, I must feel really good with you. I'm going to tell you what I said, which is kind of funny. Okay. I remember the last question, and I'm not necessarily recommending this question, is what it happens. This is what happens when you're 24 years old and you don't necessarily always think it all the way through. And I remember saying he says, do you have any questions for me? And I said, I do. I said, I've been in this job for the last 6-7 years or whatever it was, and I'm about to get promoted. So I was feeling a little overconfident. So, hey, a little overconfident. And I said, so you called me and you asked me about this position. So can you tell me, why should I leave my current position where I'm doing really well to come join you? And look them right in the eye. And after I said it, I thought, oh my God, did I just really say that out loud? That wasn't my inside voice. It was my outside voice. And I'll never forget that they were both shocked. And then they started telling me about what I would be doing. And I thought, I really want this job. And so luckily, by the time I left and got home, I had received a phone call and said, we'd like to offer you the job. A year later, I found out that when they did my anniversary, the manager reminded everybody about what I did. I thought he had forgot about it. He goes, no. When he said that to us, we knew he was the guy. So it's funny how sometimes you think about things that you do and you're kind of, oh my gosh, I should never have done that. But ended up being the reason why I got the job. Kind of interesting.
Sometimes boldness pays off, right?
Oh my gosh, but it was fun.
No, and a great anecdote. Well, I think that another thing people might be wondering is, especially if they're considering a career in the industry,
Yeah.
What does a day in the life look like? What does a day in your position look like? And maybe, in some of your other positions, what was a typical day like?
Well, I would say that in my current position, so I'm in charge of 40, soon to be 43 agents that range from Long Beach, Signal Hill, Lomita, part of Torrance, that I have all those agents in that area. And so what my job is to help them build their business. So it may be marketing, it may be sales ideas. Frankly, sometimes just a motivation of helping them motivate them. The other thing is you look at in my other roles as a claim representative, somebody had an accident, I was the one that would help take care of them. So I was, so again, it started out as, and actually in that role, I was able to kind of actually, work with attorneys on the other side. And frankly, had a great time doing that as well, because it was an opportunity to obviously take care of what I had to do to take care of our policyholders. At the same time, really get an opportunity to really kind of grow as an individual. And I think from the public affairs standpoint, public affairs became a very interesting opportunity, because you think about, for you and I doing this conversation on via Zoom, think about when you're doing it on TV, or you're doing it with somebody on the radio. I had the funniest thing on one of my interviews is that I was doing an interview about what we were doing in the community, and I happened to say a gentleman's name, and as I said his name, I said it in Spanish, the way it's supposed to be pronounced, and the lady stops me mid-interview and says, "I'm sorry, can you say that again?" And I'm like, "Okay," and I say it again, and she says, "I love accents." I thought it was the funniest thing. I'm thinking, I'm live on the radio, and this lady's doing this to me. I'm thinking, hey, be prepared for anything. Be prepared for anything. And then in personnel is that the ability to actually go out and recruit. Obviously, I would recruit at Cal State Long Beach, UCLA, USC, Cal State Fullerton, Loyola Marymount. I would recruit these when I was in personnel, and I would help shape the students. I mean, the new employees. And one of probably the most satisfying things that I've had, and this is more about in all the positions, is that I've had an opportunity where people have said, and they walked up to me and said, "David, I got to share something with you." I said, "Yeah, what is it?" He says, "You were the first person that I met at State Farm, and you are the reason why I'm here. I just want to come back and say thank you." And I have several people that have told me that, and I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying this is what has happened. And so to me, it allows me an opportunity to continue to keep looking for the folks. So there's been some great students I've been working with from HSBA that I can just see their stars are just flying high. And the idea is if you have any little part of it, and that's what each role has allowed me, is to be able to connect with others and say, wait, maybe my industry is not where you're going to be, but knowing that you've got someone that will lend you the ear, and I can share some experiences with you of things that nothing is going to be perfect. I wish I could tell you these glasses are not rose colored, right? Sometimes I'm going to tell you some reality about what we deal with, but as I look at the day in the life for me, is that today I've got some agents that are trying to grow their business that have been around for 2 years, and I have some that have been around for 40 years, and they've performed at a level better in their 40th year than they did in their first 5 years. And so I feel like I've had some part of that. And so when I get the notes from them saying, "Hey, I appreciate you for what you have done for me," that's like the currency that I just keep putting it away and say I appreciate that currency, because when I'm not at my best, that I'll have to kind of dig into that gunny sack and pull it out and say, "All right, I'm feeling good again."
Oh, that's great. I mean, I think that, it's clear that, the impact that you have on folks, like it's something that kind of stays with you, you know?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a little game. If I could just, I have a little game, and if you see me in person, you got to ask me to pull it out. But I have a little card that my son started on Mother's Day last year. And it's a little card that I always give when I have friends that are together. So usually it's a great place to be for a dinner group or whatever it might be. And the cards, it says, "I want you to ask this of your friend," and I always ask them if they're friends. And then one of the questions is, "What's the nicest thing that I've ever done for you?" And so it's such a beautiful little thing, and it's still part of what I do, is it allows people to go ahead and go beyond just a surface level to maybe have people think about, what do I mean to that other person? And so I use this with family members, with friends, with colleagues, with my agents, and they're just like, and because you know what, you can't hide behind anything, because now you got to really share. It's kind of fun.
No, that sounds great. But I also like how it kind of brought up your family, because my
Ah,
next question
yes, yes.
is about work-life balance. Especially someone in your position who oversees a lot, right? Like there's got to be that is an incredibly demanding job. How have you found that in the industry wide, how
Yeah.
people manage their work-life balance, and how do you manage your work-life balance?
So my wife and I have been married for 33 years. She's my high school sweetheart.
Wow,
Uh,
congratulations.
Thank you. We've been together for 39 years is what we've been together. We have 4 beautiful children. one that lives in the university, went to the University of Arizona, lives in Tucson. My daughter went to the University of Nevada. She's given us two of the most beautiful granddaughters that own me. They own grandpa already. I already know it. And then my third child, my daughter Lauren, she's at she went to University California, Santa Barbara. She lives in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. And then my youngest, Jacob, graduated from the University of California, San Diego. And so you think back, and I always think back, is that I always want to incorporate my family into what I was doing. And you'll laugh about this, but remember, I told you I was a little nervous about public speaking, right? And so one of the things that I would do is that I always wanted to make sure that I incorporated the kids in like my presentation. So what I would do is I would have them sit at the table. And again, at this point, some of them were maybe, because they're 2 years apart, so they could have been 4, 6, 8, and 10. And I would sit them down and say, Daddy's going to do his presentation. And the kids would get all excited because I would literally go do my whole presentation, because it was like me presenting, getting comfortable with looking at them in the eyes and do my gestures and everything else. Well, the kids were loving it because Daddy was just talking to them. They had no idea what I was talking to them about, but I would incorporate them. And then the other thing that someone taught me, again, another mentor, Eve Beck was her name. And Eve Beck told me a long time ago, she says, a lot of times when people are in this business, because they become successful, they tend to be kind of like they grow apart between the spouses. And I had just been a brand new agent. I had just started. And I'm like, I don't want to grow apart. I don't want that to happen. And so she says, what you have to do is you have to, every time that you learn something new, you got to share it with your loved one. And in my case, my wife. And so I would go to these classes where they were teaching me all these great things that, as you look at the David Maciel at 18 to the one at 56, night and day. But what I would do is I'd come home and I would share that with my spouse. Let me tell you about what we just learned today. And then frankly, the best part was when we would do exercises like a team building exercise. I would take the exact team building exercise and I would come home and I'd bring it home. And so I would bring it home. And the funniest thing is it would take the adults an hour and a half to 2 hours to finish this exercise. I would bring it home and the kids would do it literally in 20 minutes. And I think what it was because they had no barriers that they had set up already. And so they would figure things out so much quicker. And I think that was very important. And then what we'd also do in agency, that takes up a lot of time. There were sometimes that we probably were number 2 in the entire state of California as an agent. My office was. And so with that comes hours I would leave at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, like say leave at 7, I'd come back and sometimes as late as midnight. And so I knew that was a problem. And so I had to figure out something to incorporate the kids. And so what I ended up doing was we wanted to accomplish a goal. And as you know, if you have a goal, you got to write it down, right? But number 3, the secret of it is you got to carry it with you wherever you go. Okay, that's the secret of success, is that you got to write them down. I mean, have goals, write them down, but then number 3 is carry it with you wherever you go. Because if you have that goal, you always look in the pocket, you pull it out like, did I do what I was supposed to do? And if you're not, it holds you accountable. Well, what I did was I put like what we called the road to Disneyland. And I made it on a piece of paper and I did the drawing of Disneyland. And I said, okay, for when daddy does what he has to do, then when we get to this part, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go get Disneyland passes. And each one of you is going to get your own color. So each one of them got their own color. And so when I would get home, now here's the only thing though. When I started this process, I thought it was going to be tough when I just did it with my boss. Well, when you're doing it with your kids, they're even tougher, because when I come home, I say, how did Daddy do? I said, Daddy did 4 of them today. And so they go, oh my God, they all get excited. They're jumping up and down and they start coloring in the boxes. And you had to go all to the end. I get the next one. How many did you write, Daddy? I got 2. Great. Okay. How many did you get, Daddy? I got 3. And so it was great. First 4 of them, we are good. Well, guess what? On the 5th day, I came home with, I didn't write anything that day. And so I get home and they're waiting for me. Daddy, how many did you get today? I didn't get any today. Well, why didn't you get any today, Dad? What happened? What did you not call anybody? Was nobody there? Could you? I was like so shamed. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Well, guess what? The next day I made more phone calls, I made more appointments. And so the neatest thing to end the story was that when we got it, I remember writing the last two policies I had to write. And I remember telling my wife, get them in the car, get them ready. I'll be there in a little bit. I get them in the car, we drive down, and where are we going, Daddy? He says, don't worry. We get to Catella and Harbor. And this is when they had the real nice Disneyland inside in the front. And I said, guys, do you remember what Daddy said? That if we did what we were going to do, that we were going to, he says, yeah, Daddy, you said we're going to get our Disneyland passes. And so what ended up happening is that the light, and again, God, my witness, the light turns to green and we go about to turn left into Disneyland. And I said, well, this is where we're going. They start screaming, going crazy. It was probably one of the coolest things of trying to show them delayed gratification, at the same time, perseverance. And so those are the kind of these lessons that the kids like, you were doing these things. I said, there's a reason why I was doing what I was doing. I had to get you ready. So that's kind of where you think about long answer for how I incorporate them, but that's kind of what we did.
No, that's great. And I think that especially as folks think, like, how am I gonna be able to balance, work and life? And I think it's a great idea to incorporate it. And honestly, I feel like I can't wait to tell, like, my parents' family business was insurance. I can't wait to be like, oh man, what a missed opportunity for you guys.
It's exciting because you figure, and the thing is that for all the students, you figure there's so many things that you're going through right now of figuring out to get to get all my projects done, my classes. If you have to work, there's so many things that you do each and every day, but there's always, as we like to say, peaks and valleys, and the idea is that don't get too hung up on maybe that class that you didn't do as well as you would have liked. Is that just learn from that experience, and so that way, as you get the next time and say, okay, what did I do differently at that time that I should? And you know what? Because you're going to have sometimes they're going to ask you, do you want to go to the party? Well, no, I need to read this book and read this paper, and you got to make that decision. It's all about going back to do what you say what you're going to do, and those are the biggest things I would say to you.
Well, time flies, as we know, and time has flown right now with this chat. So I want to wrap it up with just a question that I love to ask at the end,
Okay.
Which is, if you had a magical time machine and you could go back to yourself when you were graduating, getting ready to graduate, or just graduated from CSULP, you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would have kept my long hair. It was down to my shoulders. I would have done that. That was kind of cool. So it's been short ever since I've been here 35 years. What I would say is that enjoy that moment. Establish more friendships that you can continue to keep after you go through, because there are things that you're going to go through after your graduation of wondering, what should I be doing? Am I doing the right things? Have someone that can kind of be your accountability partner. And frankly, sometimes someone who'll just listen to you. And one big advice is that when you have that person, make it very clear when you share it with them, is say, do you want them to listen to you, or do you want them to respond? Because once you have that conversation with someone up front, it changes everything. Because sometimes, guess what? I may just want you to listen to me, and I don't need the solution. But ask them. It's another gift that someone gave me a long time ago. My baby sister gave me that gift, and I use it all the time. Am I listening or am I responding? Either way. Because when I'm listening, you get all ears.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think that is some great advice, and I think truly some great advice for students who are looking to get out in the world and start that career. So, David, thank you so much for your time today. And folks wanted to continue the conversation or reach out to you. How might they be able to do that?
You can either have them give me a phone call. My phone number, 562-305-2111. David Maciel, State Farm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. And can't wait to catch you next time at the next 49er Industry Chat. Have a good one. Bye.